My name is Richard Collins. I'm a board member of the Tucson Presidio. One of the things that I find most fascinating about Tucson is it sits right on trails that have great historic value, that are so important to the development of this part of the country. The Anza expedition, of course, comes up the river right to the west of where I'm standing now. Prehistorically, trading trails among the native peoples had been happening up and down this river valley, and Tucson was probably an important stopping point for them even. Later on, we see the Mormon Battalion come through. We see all the military expeditions going up and down the river. During the Civil War, the California Column runs right up that river, right by Tucson. It's just one person after another is here. Picacho Peak, farther to the north, is right there. Picacho has a long history. Father Font on the Anza expedition actually says that the natives call it Taca. He calls it the Picacho de Taca, which is a native word for mountain. So it's kind of ironic that Picacho Peak is redundant because Picacho means peak, and even among the natives it's called Picacho de Peak. So it's a long tradition of misusing the name there. The peak at Picacho actually sits high out of the ground, very visible as a point to aim at as you're traveling. Well, the military, of course, uses it too. The Confederates, when they came into Arizona in 1861, actually went ahead and established a listening post up at that spot. Well, in come the Federals from California and march around, and we have a battle. It's a skirmish, but a few people die and we have a lot of gunshots made. Immediately after that, the Confederates realize this is an untenable position and they retreat. Interestingly, the California Column also retreats after having that battle to regroup and come back down again.
I'm Dan Judkins. I'm the editor of Desert Tracks, the Southern Trails chapter of OCTA's magazine, and we're here at the foot of the mountain where the original Tucson has been, and for 3,000 years people have lived right here. This area was completely covered with hohokam pit houses, and along the Santa Cruz River, which is over here about a quarter of a mile behind us, for several miles to the south and several miles to the north was almost continuous Indian villages. Along here is where the first corn was grown in what is now the United States 3,000 years ago. Also, the first irrigation ditches in what's presently the United States were right here. Behind me, this volcanic mountain, now known as A Mountain because of the University of Arizona. You can see they paint it different colors at different times. The base of this volcanic mountain, which kind of looks dark at certain times because of the rock up there, was called Tucson. And Tucson means at the base of the dark mountain. And the Spanish transliteration of Tucson is Tucson or Tucson. So that's how Tucson got its name. Behind us is just a vacant lot, but it's 4 or 5 acres, and it's where the original Tucson Convento was, the church, but sadly it was completely bulldozed in the early 1950s to make room for a city dump. Well, we're here at San Javier de Vac. Father Kino, Eusebio Kino, came here first in 1692. By 1700, 8 years later, he laid the foundations of the first church here. The church behind us, the current church, was actually finished in 1797. So this is the second or third church built on the site. And it's been operated daily since then and continues in use today as a church. The interior is pretty spectacular with almost Baroque type fresco and gold leaf decorations. The Mormon Battalion, as they approached the Tucson Presidio, was in danger of meeting up with the Mexican presidial soldiers. And the Mexican soldiers under the command of Comadron didn't want to have a fight either. And so they came 9 miles south of Tucson Presidio to this church, initially as the Mormon battalion approached Tucson. And then to make double sure, they went over there in those trees and they hid out in that forest until the Mormon battalion passed on out of Tucson. We're standing on the Tubac Road. This road is from the 1700s. Went from Santa Cruz, Sonora, up to Tumacacori, and here at Tubac and on to Tucson. So it was used throughout the Spanish period. This Presidio was opened in 1752, and so the road was used at least that early. You can see where it comes up over this little rise right here. And right here you can see where rocks have been put in on the side to shore it up to keep it from eroding. I happen to notice when I glance down that everywhere I look, there's Indian pottery, like right here, and a bunch of it right there. This may be a little later in the American period because it's white. So here is the trail. And guess who else used this trail? Anza in 1775. And then in 1849, all of the 49ers came through here, more than 10,000 of them, probably on this very road. We're on a continuation of the road that we were looking at right up there a minute ago, and you can see right on the other side of the fence here where it continues down in through the mesquites here. About 100 yards down there, there's an arroyo, and on the other side, there's a number of adobe mounds, which was part of where the soldiers lived in the presidial period in the 1700s here. And also down there, in addition to this visible segment of the road, are sections of the acequia, which is the water ditch that brought water up from the river, which is a little bit further over this way, 1/4 of a mile, and it brought it up around by the village and back into the river.
Hello, my name is Georgina Hackes, and I am a park ranger here at Tumacacori National Historical Park. This site preserves the ruins of a Spanish colonial mission site. And so visitors to this park have the opportunity to explore a very rich, diverse, and complicated history. One in which starts with the O'odham people, the indigenous people who have lived here for many, many generations. As Father Kino explored this region, he made contact with the O'odham people who lived here. And he began to slowly establish mission communities at locations where villages were already settled. Here at Tumacacori, he established the mission of San Cayetano de Tumacacori in the year 1691. And at that point, the goal was to convert the indigenous peoples of this region to the Spanish way of life. In the year 1775, Juan Bautista de Anza traveled through this region, and he led an expedition of about 240 men, women, and children from here all the way to California, to the San Francisco Bay Area, to establish a Spanish colony. Eventually, with time, the community was able to begin to build the infrastructure needed for this community. The building you see behind me is the Mission Church here at Tumacacori, and it was built under the Franciscan missionary oversight. We think they started constructing this mission church in the year 1800. This building was never completed. There were many challenges throughout this time, both lack of funds or resources and uprisings and just other challenges. In 1810, Mexico began to fight for their independence from Spain, and it wasn't until 1821 that they were actually successful in becoming a new republic. Mexico told all Spanish-born priests to leave this new republic. And as a result, Tumacacori in the year 1828 lost its last resident priest. The community was able to persist here a few more decades, but in the year 1848, due to a harsh winter and continued Apache raids, the community decided to leave this site. Tumacacori National Historical Park protects about a mile of the Santa Cruz River, and along this area you can also explore the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail. These areas provide excellent opportunities to explore nature, get out and do some bird walking, and just really experience some really peaceful and incredible natural spaces. In the walls of the Mission Church here, you will sometimes also encounter historic graffiti. After this mission site was abandoned, people continued making their way through this region, and that includes the 49ers making their way to California in search of new opportunity. The building and the writings on the walls are a reminder of those people who not only lived here, but in some cases those who just came through and explored this site.
Here we are in the replanted orchard at Tumacacori Mission. This is a peach tree behind me, and I want to tell you what the 49ers thought about this when they came down the trail in September of 1849, just as the peaches ripened. In late August, September, Lewis Birdsall Harris was here, and he said, "We passed deserted ranches almost every day. We found the peach orchard hanging full of ripe fruit and lived on peach cobbler for a long time." Here we are, believe it or not, in the middle of the southern Arizona desert. In 1775, Juan Bautista de Anza the Younger, Jr., who had been captain at the Presidio of Tubac, had got permission from the central government in Mexico City, still under Spanish rule, to make an overland route to California. So he went all the way 605 miles south of here, Nogales, Arizona, all the way through Sonora and into Sinaloa to Culiacan, the capital, and got some settlers, picked a few more up in Sonora. The last day before they got to Tubac, and they camped here overnight. And I just wanted to read from Pedro Font's diary, With Anza to California. We set out from El Cibuta at 8 o'clock in the morning, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon halted at the spot called Las Lagunas, having traveled 8 leagues, course northward with some veering northwestward. So here we are in the middle of the desert at Las Lagunas.